The Self-Esteem Expert's Guide to Stopping Self-Doubt at Work. There's a moment in every successful person's life when they finally see what's been holding them back. And it's rarely a lack of talent, intelligence, or opportunity. Most of the time, it's something much quieter, much more subtle, almost invisible: self-doubt. And the truth is, self-doubt in the workplace doesn't show up screaming. It whispers. It makes you question if you're ready, if you're good enough, if you deserve to speak up, lead, grow, or shine. And yet, every millionaire, every CEO, every world-changing innovator will tell you the same thing. The moment they decided to stop letting self-doubt drive their decisions was the moment everything turned around. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to make that shift. This is not theory. This is a practical, psychology-backed, real-world guide to help you step into the highest, most capable, most confident version of yourself at work. This is the Self-Esteem Expert's Guide to Stopping Self-Doubt, so you can rise, succeed, and lead with real inner power. Topic 1. The hidden cost of self-doubt. What you're losing without realizing it. Most people underestimate the real cost of self-doubt. They think it's just a feeling, an insecurity, a passing discomfort. But in reality, self-doubt is one of the most expensive habits a human being can have, especially in the modern workplace, where opportunities move fast, visibility matters, and confidence is often perceived as competence. Self-doubt doesn't just slow you down, it rewires your identity, your decisions, your daily behavior, and the way others perceive your value. And here's the painful truth. While self-doubt makes you question yourself, the world doesn't wait. Promotions pass. Projects are given to louder voices. Leaders invest in people who act with conviction. And often, the most talented person in the room is the one who stays silent. Not because they lack ability, but because they lack permission from themselves. Think for a moment about Jeff Bezos when he was still working at D.E. Shaw before Amazon existed. By all logical standards, leaving a high-paying Wall Street job to start an online bookstore in the mid-1990s made no sense. The internet was new, unproven, unpredictable, and yet Bezos said something that would eventually define his entire career. "I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that. But I knew the one thing I might regret is not trying." That sentence is confidence. That sentence is the absence of self-doubt. That sentence built a trillion-dollar company. And it makes you wonder, how many Amazon-level ideas have died inside workplaces simply because someone doubted themselves for too long? Self-doubt makes you shrink. It makes you overthink emails. It makes you apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. It makes you feel like you need permission to take initiative. It makes you feel like you have to prove yourself twice as hard for half the recognition. And one of the hardest parts is how cleverly self-doubt disguises itself as humility, caution, or politeness. But those aren't the same. There is nothing humble about playing small. There is nothing noble about withholding your potential. There is nothing polite about dimming your own light. Humility is knowing your strengths and weaknesses clearly. Self-doubt is believing your weaknesses define you. And the moment you understand the difference, everything changes. In corporate environments, especially when you're surrounded by strong personalities, self-doubt can feel almost natural. You compare yourself. You inflate other people's abilities while minimizing your own. You think, "Who am I to take the lead?" Or, "What if I'm wrong?" Or, "What if they think I'm not ready?" But here's the mental reframe that high performers master. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" they ask, "What if this is the opportunity that changes everything?" It's a shift from fear-based thinking to possibility-based thinking. And possibility thinking is the foundation of wealth, success, and influence. Look at Oprah Winfrey, who started her career being told she was unfit for television. Imagine if she had believed that. Imagine if she had let one opinion become her identity. Oprah built a billion-dollar brand by refusing to let doubt silence her voice. Self-doubt is also one of the biggest destroyers of creativity. When you doubt yourself, you censor your ideas before the world even hears them. You filter your brilliance. You dilute your intuition. You erase your originality in an attempt to look safe, acceptable, predictable. But the modern workplace doesn't reward predictable anymore. It rewards innovation, courage, and authenticity. Companies like Google, Tesla, Apple, SpaceX, These giants didn't rise because their founders avoided risk. They rose because their leaders trusted their ability to figure things out. They acted even when the outcome wasn't guaranteed. They moved while others hesitated. And hesitation is the greatest ally self-doubt has. Now let's talk about energy. Self-doubt drains you. It creates mental fatigue because you're constantly evaluating yourself instead of executing. It creates emotional exhaustion because you're always negotiating your worth. It creates spiritual heaviness because you're living disconnected from your true potential. And when you operate from that place, you're not just losing opportunities, you're losing time. And time is the one currency no one gets more of. Imagine how different your career could look if, for the next 12 months, every decision came from confidence instead of fear. Imagine walking into meetings with unshakable certainty. Imagine speaking without rehearsing every sentence in your mind. Imagine volunteering for challenges instead of shrinking from them. That version of you exists. The only thing missing is the belief that you're allowed to be that person. What's even more surprising is how quickly opportunities respond to confidence. When you shift your identity, even slightly, your environment shifts with you. Colleagues start seeing you as a leader. Managers trust you more. People treat you according to the energy you project. And as your self-belief grows, your professional influence expands. You become magnetic. You become someone others want to collaborate with, follow, promote, and invest in. In fact, many HR executives openly admit that confidence is one of the top predictors of upward mobility. Skill gets you in the door, confidence elevates you, and self-doubt quietly pushes you to the back of the line. Think of this topic as the foundation for the entire transformation we're building today. Before you can eliminate self-doubt, you must understand what it's costing you. Not in vague emotional terms, but in real, measurable consequences. Missed promotions, lower salaries, limited visibility, restricted creativity, smaller networks, weakened influence, and a life that feels smaller than the one you are capable of living. When you see the true price, you stop accepting self-doubt as a personality trait and start treating it like a habit you can break. And when you break it, everything, your career, your relationships, your income, your confidence, begins to accelerate. This first step isn't about blaming yourself. It's about waking up. It's about realizing that you were never lacking ability. You were lacking self-permission. And from this moment forward, the goal is simple: to reclaim that permission, rebuild your self-esteem, and step boldly into the level of success, abundance, and prosperity that has always been waiting for you. Topic 2. Rewriting your internal narrative. How millionaires eliminate self-doubt at the source. If you want to stop self-doubt at work, you must begin where it actually lives. Not in your skills, not in your job title, not in your environment, but in your internal narrative. The story you tell yourself about who you are, what you are capable of, and what you deserve sets the tone for every action you take. Your internal narrative is the software that runs your entire professional life. And just like a computer that slows down when the software is outdated, your career slows down when you continue running beliefs that no longer match who you want to become. The modern seeker of success and prosperity must master this truth. You don't rise because the world suddenly opens doors for you. You rise because your identity evolves, and the world simply adjusts to reflect it. Self-doubt is not a lack of confidence. It is a habit of rehearsing old stories. Stories like, "I'm not ready," "I don't want to embarrass myself," "I'm not as good as them," or "What if I fail?" These stories are not facts. They are interpretations shaped by past experiences, childhood conditioning, and the fear of rejection. The moment you begin questioning these stories, they lose their power. Think of self-doubt as a movie you've watched too many times. You know the plot, the scenes, the ending. But what if you decided to walk out of the theater and watch a new film? One where you're capable, confident, bold, and prepared. That shift in narrative is the beginning of real self-leadership. One powerful example of rewriting an inner narrative comes from Sarah Blakely, the billionaire founder of Spanx. Blakely has openly said that she didn't grow up being praised for being right. Instead, her father would ask her, "What did you fail at this week?" And if she didn't have something to say, he was actually disappointed. Think about how radical that is. Most people grow up avoiding failure at all costs. Blakely grew up normalizing it. So when she walked into Neiman Marcus to pitch her first product, without connections, without experience, without a clear roadmap, she simply didn't have the narrative that said, "Who do you think you are?" She had the narrative that said, "You try, you go, you act." That single belief shifted her future, and it teaches something profound. Your self-image determines your self-permission. Your subconscious mind accepts whatever story you repeat often enough. If you repeat, "I'm not good at speaking up," your brain treats it as truth, even if there's no real evidence behind it. If you repeat, "I'm not leadership material," your actions will follow that script in meetings, decisions, and challenges. The good news is that the brain is neuroplastic. It can rewire itself. You can literally train your mind to expect success, to assume capability, to feel worthy of opportunity. And the moment you do that, you begin to act like someone who succeeds instead of someone who survives. This is not manifestation in a shallow, wishful thinking way. This is neuroscience meeting intention. When you change your internal narrative, you change the story your brain works to fulfill. But here's the difference between high performers and everyone else. High performers consciously design their narratives. Everyone else unconsciously inherits them. Millionaires don't wait for confidence. They create it by consistently telling themselves a better, more empowering story. They challenge thoughts that shrink them. They replace fear-based questions with growth-based questions. They speak to themselves the way a great mentor would, not with judgment, but with vision. And they absolutely refuse to let the old story define the new chapter. This is why companies built by visionary founders often appear unstoppable. The narrative those founders carry internally is far bigger than any setback they face externally. Think of Elon Musk, who has faced more public failures than almost any modern entrepreneur. Rockets exploding, cars criticized, deadlines missed, losses in the billions. And yet, his narrative has always been, "We will figure it out." That single phrase is the antidote to self-doubt. It removes perfectionism from the equation. It removes fear of failure. It removes the belief that you need to have everything figured out before taking the next step. When you adopt a narrative of, "I will figure this out," you unlock creativity, resilience, and confidence instantly. And in the workplace, that attitude is pure gold. Leaders notice it, teams feel it, opportunities gravitate toward it. Now, imagine bringing this narrative into your everyday work life. Imagine walking into a performance review not with dread, but with a calm inner voice saying, "I bring value, I'm growing, I'm here to contribute, learn, and lead." Imagine raising your hand in a meeting and thinking, "My perspective is useful, my ideas matter." Imagine accepting a new challenge with the belief, "Even if I don't know everything yet, I will master it." Suddenly, self-doubt has no oxygen left. You are no longer operating from fear, you are operating from expansion. You are stepping into the mindset of someone who expects to win. But rewriting your internal narrative is not just mental. It must be emotional. Your story has to feel true in your body, not just in your thoughts. You have to feel the shift from insecurity to certainty, from hesitation to grounded confidence. One way to do this is to visualize the version of you who no longer doubts themselves at work. See how they walk, notice how they speak, observe the energy they carry. Let that version of you become more familiar than the version who second-guesses everything. The more vivid this emotional identity becomes, the faster your subconscious adopts it as your new baseline. And when your identity changes, your performance changes. Every career transformation begins with an internal decision. A decision to stop narrating your life with limits and start narrating it with possibility. A decision to stop treating insecurity as truth and start treating it as noise. A decision to stop letting old stories guide your future. This is the inner work that shapes promotions, leadership opportunities, income growth, creativity, innovation, and professional fulfillment. When your story changes, your energy shifts. And when your energy shifts, your entire professional world rearranges itself to match it. So, let this be your turning point. Right here, right now. Let this be the moment you decide that self-doubt is no longer your narrator. You are. And the story you're writing next is one of growth, confidence, self-esteem, courage, and unstoppable success. Topic 3. Breaking the cycle of overthinking. How high performers make decisions with confidence. Overthinking is one of the most common and destructive forms of self-doubt in the workplace. It creates paralysis, hesitation, and emotional exhaustion. It makes you rehearse the same thoughts repeatedly, as if thinking more will somehow guarantee a perfect outcome. But here's the truth that high performers understand deeply. Clarity comes from action, not from mental loops. No millionaire, no CEO, no top-performing leader built their career by waiting for the moment when they felt 100% ready. They acted while they were uncertain, and through action, confidence was created. Overthinking is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that your mind hasn't yet learned to trust your own judgment. Today, we correct that. Let's start with the psychology behind overthinking. When you hesitate, even for a moment, your brain begins scanning for danger. It amplifies doubt, magnifies small details, and exaggerates possible negative outcomes. This is a biological survival mechanism, not a professional strategy. Your mind is trying to protect you from embarrassment, rejection, or failure, but in doing so, it prevents growth, opportunity, and leadership. In the modern workplace, where speed, adaptability, and confidence are essential, overthinking is like trying to run a marathon with a 100-pound weight strapped to your back. You're capable of going further, but the mental load slows everything down. Think about the founders of Airbnb. When Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia first had the idea of renting out air mattresses in their living room to strangers, every logical part of their brains probably tried to talk them out of it. It was strange, unconventional, risky. But instead of spiraling into overthinking, they acted. They tested the idea. They learned from real experience rather than hypothetical scenarios. And that decision, that interruption of overthinking, led to one of the most successful companies of the modern era. Their success was not born from perfect planning. It was born from willingness to take imperfect action. This is exactly how wealthy individuals and high performers approach decision-making. They don't aim for perfect, they aim for progress. They don't get stuck in what if. They move toward let's see. They understand that mistakes are not evidence of incompetence. Mistakes are feedback. They act, learn, adjust, and act again. This is the cycle that builds confidence. Action, feedback, refinement, mastery. Overthinkers never enter this cycle because they stay frozen at step zero. They never experience the micro wins that create trust in their own abilities. And when you don't trust your own abilities, self-doubt takes over. But here's the empowering part. Overthinking is not your personality. It is a practiced pattern, and patterns can be replaced. The moment you interrupt the loop, you begin rewiring how your mind handles uncertainty. For example, imagine you're at work and someone asks for your input in a meeting. Your overthinking brain will likely say, "What if I say something wrong? What if they judge me? What if I should just stay quiet?" These thoughts fire within milliseconds, but high performers do something very different. They act before the doubt expands. They speak. They offer an idea. They trust that their intelligence, experience, and instincts will carry them through. And even if it's not perfect, they know repetition will make them stronger. Overthinking also creates an illusion that you need more information before making a decision. But research shows that most people need only 40 to 70% of the information to make an effective decision. Anything beyond that becomes fear disguised as preparation. Look at companies like Meta, Apple, Tesla, Netflix. These companies innovate because their leaders move quickly. They test ideas instead of theorizing them endlessly. They take calculated risks. They make adjustments in real time. And that agility is a mindset you can adopt, no matter your job title. Another reason overthinking persists is because people secretly believe that self-doubt makes them humble or careful. But humility is acknowledging you don't know everything. Overthinking is assuming you won't handle anything. They are completely different states of mind. And when you confuse them, you shrink your contributions. The workplace does not reward people who doubt themselves. It rewards people who act with intentional confidence. Managers trust the person who makes decisions, not the one who always waits for direction. Leaders promote the person who can handle ambiguity, not the one who panics in uncertainty. Let's look at Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors of all time. Buffett is known for his calm decision-making process. He doesn't rush, but he doesn't spiral either. He gathers enough information to make a judgment, then acts decisively. And even when he makes the wrong call, he doesn't lose confidence. He simply adapts. He sees mistakes as tuition fees for the mastery of investing. When you adopt this mindset at work, something magical happens. Fear loses its grip. Your brain stops associating mistakes with identity and starts associating them with growth. So how do you break the cycle of overthinking in your own life? You begin by acting a little faster than your doubt. You speak up before your mind tries to talk you out of it. You send the email before you reread it 10 times. You accept the opportunity before fear convinces you you're not ready. You take the first step, trusting that clarity will meet you on the way. This is how you train the mind to trust itself. Confidence is not a reward for perfection. It is a reward for action. And the more you act, the more confident you become. Not because you eliminate uncertainty, but because you prove to yourself that you can handle uncertainty. Imagine living 1 year with this new mindset. Imagine taking action consistently, even imperfectly. Imagine stepping into challenges with the belief that you'll figure things out. Imagine making decisions without spiraling into self-doubt. That version of you would be unrecognizable compared to the one who procrastinates out of fear. That version of you would stand out in any organization. That version of you would earn opportunities faster, build trust quicker, and rise higher because decisive energy is magnetic. Overthinking is a cage that looks like caution, but the door is already open. You are not trapped. You are simply accustomed to staying inside. And the moment you step out, the moment you begin choosing action over rumination, your entire professional life expands. This is one of the greatest secrets of self-esteem. You don't wait for confidence to act. You act your way into confidence. And once you break this cycle, self-doubt no longer has the power to dictate your potential. Topic 4. Building unshakable workplace. Confidence through identity shifts. If you want to stop self-doubt at work permanently, you must stop trying to fix your confidence and start transforming your identity. Because confidence is not a mood. It is not a fleeting emotion. It is the natural byproduct of becoming the type of person who no longer needs to doubt themselves. Everything you do, every decision you make, every opportunity you pursue or avoid flows from your identity, your inner sense of who you are. And the workplace magnifies that identity. It reflects it back to you through the roles you accept, the risks you take, the value you express, and the energy you project. If you want unshakable confidence, you must become someone who confidently expects growth, success, recognition, and upward movement. Identity first, results second. Most people try to build confidence from the outside in. They wait for validation, praise, perfect performance, or external proof that they're good enough. But that creates a fragile identity, one that collapses the moment criticism arrives or things don't go perfectly. High performers, especially millionaire entrepreneurs and visionary leaders, do the opposite. They build identity from the inside out. They decide who they are before the world sees evidence. They speak as if they belong in the room, long before others confirm it. They take action aligned with the person they are becoming, not the person they used to be. Think about the early days of Netflix. Reed Hastings didn't build confidence because the market guaranteed success. The idea of streaming content online was considered impossible. Blockbuster dominated the industry. And yet, Hastings acted from the identity of an innovator, someone who disrupts, someone who sees opportunities where others see limitations. That identity carried him through years of doubt from investors, setbacks, and market resistance. Eventually, the world caught up to the identity he held first. That is the power of internal confidence. You decide who you are, and reality adjusts over time. Identity is shaped through repetition and environment. Every time you hesitate at work, every time you stay silent in a meeting, every time you minimize your worth, your brain collects that evidence and updates your identity to match. I guess I'm someone who stays quiet. I guess I'm someone who isn't leadership material. I guess I'm someone who needs permission. But when you deliberately replace those behaviors, even in small ways, your identity shifts. You speak up once. You take initiative once. You express a bold idea once. And your brain says, wait, maybe we are confident. Maybe we are capable. Maybe we are more powerful than we thought. This single shift begins rewiring your identity faster than hours of motivational thinking. Another powerful example is Oprah Winfrey. Again, not because she is famous, but because her identity work is a masterclass in self-belief. Oprah didn't wait to become Oprah before acting like Oprah. She embodied emotional intelligence, leadership presence, compassion, and influence long before the world recognized her brilliance. Her identity drove her behavior, not the other way around. And when you observe her journey, you see something clear. People rise not because the world grants them permission, but because they remove the internal resistance to being seen. This is why identity shifts matter so much in the workplace. Once you believe you belong at higher levels of influence, you begin acting like someone who belongs there. Your voice becomes more grounded, your decisions become more assertive, your ideas become clearer because they're no longer filtered through fear. Your presence becomes more magnetic because you stop contracting your energy. And when this identity shift happens, managers and leaders feel it immediately. They don't promote confidence, they promote identity. They promote the person who carries themselves like a leader. Identity shifts require one critical mindset. You must see yourself as a work in progress, not a finished product. Self-doubt thrives when you believe confidence is something you're either born with or not. But neuroscience proves identity is adaptable. You can become someone new through intention, repetition, and emotional experience. Wealthy individuals often credit identity shifts as the turning point in their careers. They began thinking like millionaires, resourceful, solution-oriented, resilient, years before they saw millionaire outcomes. The mind changed first, the bank account followed. Now, imagine applying this in your daily professional life. Imagine you adopt the identity of someone who deserves to take up space in every room they walk into, someone who sees challenges as invitations to grow, someone who brings value effortlessly because they trust their intelligence, someone who expects success instead of hoping for it. How would you speak? How would you work? How would you show up? The moment you start behaving according to this identity, even before you fully believe it, your environment begins reflecting it back to you. This is what self-esteem experts call behavioral congruence, the alignment between who you say you are and how you act. Companies like Google and IBM actively study identity psychology in leadership development. They've discovered that employees who see themselves as high performers, even before they become high performers, grow faster, learn faster, adapt faster, and rise faster. Their belief drives behavior. Their behavior drives skill. Their skill drives confidence, and confidence becomes their professional advantage. Identity is the root. Everything else is the branches. So here's the breakthrough. You don't overcome self-doubt by fighting it. You overcome it by outgrowing it. You become someone who simply doesn't identify with smallness anymore. When you step into this new identity, self-doubt becomes irrelevant, like a childhood fear you no longer relate to. It fades because you've moved beyond it. And one day, not far from now, you'll look back and realize something extraordinary. The confident, powerful, grounded person you've become didn't show up by accident. They were created, intentionally, repeatedly, boldly. You rewrote the story. You shaped your identity. And your workplace confidence became unshakable because it wasn't borrowed from external validation. It was built from within. Topic 5. The power of emotional self-mastery, controlling your inner world to control your career. If you want to eliminate self-doubt at work, you must learn how to master the emotional storms that rise inside you. Because self-doubt isn't only a cognitive habit, it's an emotional reaction. It shows up as a tightening in your chest, a rush of nervous energy, a fear of judgment, or a sudden impulse to stay quiet when your voice is needed. These sensations come before the thoughts. And if you don't know how to regulate these emotional triggers, your brain will interpret them as danger and pull you back into the same cycle of hesitation and insecurity. Emotional self-mastery is the skill that transforms uncertainty into strength, fear into clarity, and inner chaos into inner authority. The truth is, workplaces amplify emotions. Pressure, deadlines, interpersonal dynamics, expectations, performance reviews, meetings with executives, all of these activate your emotional system long before your logical mind gets involved. And most professionals never learn how to manage that. They feel overwhelmed and then interpret the overwhelm as inadequacy. They feel anxious and call it unpreparedness. They feel insecure and assume it means they shouldn't step forward. But none of these interpretations are accurate. Emotions are signals, not definitions. They are messages, not identities. When you learn how to decode your emotions instead of reacting to them, you stop being controlled by self-doubt and start moving from inner stability. Think of emotional self-mastery as the operating system of high performers. Wealthy individuals and powerful leaders have this in common. They regulate themselves quickly. They don't deny their emotions. They don't suppress them. They don't pretend they don't feel fear or pressure. They simply refuse to let those emotions dictate their behavior. When emotions rise, they pause. They breathe. They observe. They let the feeling move through without attaching a negative meaning to it. This psychological distance, known as emotional decentering, is one of the most effective tools for building workplace confidence. Let's look at a real example from the world of high-stakes leadership. Howard Schultz, the former CEO of Starbucks, has spoken openly about moments when he felt insecure, overwhelmed, or questioned whether he was capable of leading a global company. But instead of letting those emotions control him, he would step back and observe what the emotion was trying to communicate. Was it signaling a need for clarity, a need for rest, a need for support, a need for courage? By separating the emotion from his identity, Schultz could lead from grounded confidence rather than reactive insecurity. Emotional mastery didn't remove fear. It removed fear's power. Emotional self-mastery also helps you interpret workplace challenges more accurately. Instead of seeing criticism as personal failure, you see it as feedback. Instead of seeing uncertainty as danger, you see it as opportunity. Instead of seeing mistakes as proof that you're not good enough, you see them as part of the learning curve. This shift in emotional meaning is what separates someone who thrives from someone who stays stuck. Your emotions are not the problem. The story you attach to them is the problem. Once you change the story, the same emotions that once held you back become fuel for your growth. Now let's talk about emotional triggers. Those moments when something small creates a big internal reaction. It could be a certain coworker's tone, a sudden challenge, a public request from your boss, or an unexpected setback. These triggers often come from old wounds, past experiences of rejection, embarrassment, or failure that were never emotionally processed. So when something similar happens at work, your body reacts as if the past is happening again. This is why a simple email can make your heart race, or why speaking in a meeting can feel like a life or death situation. Emotional mastery means breaking the link between past pain and present behavior. Millionaires and top performers practice emotional neutrality. They stay calm under pressure because they have trained their nervous systems to remain steady even when circumstances are chaotic. Think about Serena Williams, one of the most mentally strong athletes in history. Her mastery isn't just physical, it's emotional. She can stand on a global stage with millions of eyes on her, in the middle of intense competition, and still make decisions with clarity, precision, and power. Her emotional training allows her to silence doubt in real time. And in the workplace, this same skill gives you an edge others don't have. When you learn to calm your emotional storms, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes clear, your decisions become sharper, your voice becomes stronger, your intuition becomes louder. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond intentionally. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you expand into it. Emotional mastery gives you stability, and stability gives you presence. Presence is one of the rarest forms of power in the workplace. When you radiate calm confidence, people trust you more. They feel safe around you. They see you as someone who can handle responsibility and leadership. Emotional maturity is professional currency. But emotional mastery is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotionally intelligent. It's about recognizing what you feel without letting the feeling take over. It's about honoring your inner world while still showing up as your highest self. And the most powerful part? You can train this skill daily. Through mindful breathing, journaling, reflection, nervous system regulation, deep rest, intentional boundaries, and self-awareness, you can rewire your emotional responses. You can create a new baseline of calm, and that calm becomes the soil where confidence grows. Imagine showing up to work with this level of emotional authority. Imagine handling pressure with grace. Imagine walking into challenging conversations without fear. Imagine expressing your ideas without shrinking. Imagine trusting yourself even when uncertainty is high. That level of emotional self-mastery doesn't just eliminate self-doubt. It elevates your entire career trajectory. Leaders are not chosen because they never feel fear. They are chosen because they have learned how to navigate their emotional landscape with strength and clarity. Emotional mastery is your internal foundation. Without it, confidence will always feel unstable. With it, confidence becomes who you are. And as you strengthen this emotional presence, you'll notice something extraordinary. The workplace stops intimidating you. People stop intimidating you. Challenges stop intimidating you. Because the moment you learn to regulate your inner world, you gain control over your outer world. And when that happens, self-doubt loses its last source of power. Topic 6. Reclaiming your voice. How to speak with authority. Even when you feel insecure, one of the most damaging effects of self-doubt at work is the way it steals your voice. You know that moment, when an idea rises inside you, when a thought is ready to be expressed, when a solution is forming in your mind, and then suddenly, insecurity interrupts. You hesitate. You swallow your words. You tell yourself, maybe someone else will say it better. Maybe I'm not seeing this correctly. Maybe it's not important. And the moment passes. Your voice retreats. Your presence shrinks. Your confidence weakens. But what if I told you that speaking with authority has almost nothing to do with feeling confident, and everything to do with choosing to trust your perspective even when you feel uncertain? Reclaiming your voice is one of the most transformative steps you can take in your career. It shifts how people perceive you, how you perceive yourself, and the level of influence you naturally attract. Because the workplace rewards visibility. It rewards contribution. It rewards people who are willing to step forward and offer value. Every time you speak up, you affirm your identity as someone who belongs in the conversation. Every time you stay silent out of fear, you reinforce the identity of someone who doubts their right to participate. Your voice is not just communication, it is a declaration of your worth. Think of Sheryl Sandberg during her early years at Google. She has spoken openly about the insecurities she felt walking into rooms full of brilliant engineers, many of whom underestimated her abilities as a woman in tech. But she made a deliberate decision. Her voice would not be optional. She would sit at the table, she would contribute her ideas, she would ask questions, she would assert her vision, and that decision, that commitment to reclaim her voice, eventually led her to become the COO of Facebook, Meta, one of the most influential leadership roles of the digital age. Her success demonstrates something profound. Your voice shapes your career long before your resume does. When you doubt yourself, your voice becomes shaky, not because you're incapable, but because your emotions are louder than your clarity. This is where emotional self-mastery connects directly to communication. When you learn to regulate your emotions in the moment, your voice naturally becomes stronger. Confidence is not the absence of fear while speaking. It is the quiet inner belief that your perspective matters, even if your heart is racing. And the more you practice expressing yourself, the more your nervous system adapts. Your voice becomes a tool you know how to use. One of the biggest myths professionals believe is that confident people speak because they feel confident. This is false. Confident speakers become confident because they speak. They show up even when they're unsure. They contribute even when they're nervous. They trust that clarity will come as they communicate. They understand that confidence is built through repetition, not perfection. Think of Steve Jobs, who became known for his powerful presentations. But early in his career, he was terrified of public speaking. He practiced relentlessly. He embraced the discomfort. He reclaimed ownership of his voice. And over time, that voice shaped the world of technology. The reason your voice matters so much is because it is a direct reflection of your identity. When you express yourself, you're saying to the world, I belong here. I have value. My thoughts deserve space. And when others hear you speak with authority, they begin to adjust how they relate to you. They see you as a leader, as someone with insight, as someone who carries inner strength. That perception influences opportunities, promotions, collaborations, and career advancement. Leaders are built through communication long before they are built through job titles. Now, imagine the opposite scenario, staying silent out of fear. Every time you do that, you reinforce a narrative that you should stay small. You communicate to yourself and the world that your ideas are secondary, your perspective is optional, your presence is flexible. This slowly erodes self-esteem because your internal identity becomes aligned with inaction. You begin believing you have nothing valuable to say, not because it's true, but because you've practiced silence for too long. But the moment you speak, the pattern breaks. The moment you express yourself, you reclaim inner territory that self-doubt stole from you. Reclaiming your voice is not about dominating conversations or speaking constantly. It is about being grounded enough in your identity to contribute authentically. Some of the most powerful voices in business belong to people who speak less often, but with precision and clarity. Think of Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, whose leadership style is rooted in humility, thoughtfulness, and emotional intelligence. He doesn't need volume to have impact, he needs presence, and presence is built from self-trust. To reclaim your voice in practical terms, you must create micro moments of courage. When your mind says, "Stay quiet," you take a breath and say one sentence anyway. When your energy contracts, you expand into the moment. When your fear says, "Don't risk it," you say, "What if this is the moment that changes everything?" That's how real transformation happens, not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through consistent small acts of self-trust. Speaking with authority doesn't mean you need to know everything. In fact, some of the best leaders speak openly about what they don't know. They ask questions, they explore ideas, they invite collaboration. Authority comes not from certainty, but from presence. And you can build presence by practicing 3 internal shifts. Trust your perspective, believe your voice matters, and allow yourself to take up space. These 3 beliefs alone can elevate your communication from hesitant to powerful. Imagine showing up to work tomorrow as someone who speaks with calm confidence. Imagine your ideas flowing more easily. Imagine colleagues turning toward you when you speak because they feel the strength behind your words. Imagine contributing without worrying whether you sound perfect. That version of you is not far away. In fact, they already exist inside you. They are simply waiting for permission to emerge. And the moment you reclaim your voice, that version becomes your new identity. Your voice is your power, your influence, your presence. It is the bridge between who you are now and who you are becoming. When you learn to speak even when your doubt whispers, you take control of your narrative. You become someone who leads instead of someone who hides. And from that moment forward, your career rises not because you forced confidence, but because you allowed your authentic power to be heard. Topic 7. Transforming impostor syndrome into inner strength, the mindset shift that changes everything. Impostor syndrome is one of the most misunderstood psychological patterns in the modern workplace. People think it means they're unqualified, inexperienced, or undeserving, when in reality, impostor syndrome often appears in the most capable individuals, the ones who are growing, stretching, evolving, and stepping into higher levels of responsibility. Impostor syndrome is not a sign that you don't belong. It's a sign that you are entering territory your past self never imagined you would reach. And because your identity hasn't fully caught up with your new level yet, the mind interprets this expansion as, "I'm a fraud," or "I'm not supposed to be here." But this interpretation is incorrect. Impostor syndrome is not a warning. It is evidence of growth. Let's redefine it clearly. Impostor syndrome is the emotional discomfort of leveling up. Every millionaire, every CEO, every powerful leader has felt it. The difference is, they don't take it personally. They don't interpret the discomfort as a lack of worth. They interpret it as a sign they're stepping into new territory. And they expect that territory to feel unfamiliar at first. Reed Hastings felt it when Netflix began disrupting the entertainment industry. Indra Nooyi felt it when she became the CEO of PepsiCo. Even Maya Angelou, one of the greatest authors in history, once said she feared someone would discover she couldn't write. Imagine that. A literary genius doubting her abilities. The lesson is clear. Feeling like an imposter does not mean you are unqualified. It means you are human. Imposter syndrome becomes dangerous only when you believe the thoughts it produces. Thoughts like, "I don't know enough," "I'm not as smart as they think," or "I just got lucky." These thoughts are not facts. They are echoes of old identity patterns, and the moment you challenge them, they begin to lose power. You can't eliminate imposter syndrome by trying to be more perfect. You eliminate its control by building a new interpretation of what the feeling actually means. Instead of thinking, "I don't belong here," you think, "This is new for me, and that's exactly why I'm here." Instead of thinking, "They overestimated me," you think, "They see potential I'm still growing into." Instead of thinking, "I'm not ready," you think, I grow fastest when I'm slightly uncomfortable. This shift may sound simple, but it is revolutionary. Your emotional state changes instantly when you reinterpret what discomfort means. And when discomfort no longer equals inadequacy, self-doubt loses its grip. Successful people don't wait to feel ready. They move while they feel unsure. They act while they feel stretched. They speak while they feel imperfect. They trust that readiness is built through action, not before it. This is why they rise, because they don't confuse discomfort with danger. If you want an example of how imposter syndrome transforms into greatness, look at the story of Jensen Huang, the CEO and co-founder of NVIDIA. When he started NVIDIA in 1993, he had no guarantee that his vision for graphics processing would ever succeed. He wasn't the perfect founder, he wasn't from a traditional Silicon Valley background, and he wasn't surrounded by unlimited resources. But he believed in his ability to figure things out. That belief, not certainty, fueled the early days of NVIDIA. And today, NVIDIA is one of the most influential technology companies on the planet. Jensen has openly admitted that early on, he often felt like he had no idea what he was doing. But instead of letting imposter syndrome paralyze him, he let it sharpen him. He let it push him to learn, adapt, and innovate. That mindset is what created a multi-billion-dollar empire. Imposter syndrome also shows up when your reality grows faster than your identity. For example, you might get a promotion, join a new team, or be trusted with a big project, and suddenly your mind thinks, this can't be real. But this is exactly when you must anchor into your value instead of shrinking from it. Your past self may not have seen this level coming, but your present self is fully capable of rising to it. Identity expands through exposure. The more you show up in environments that stretch you, the more your self-concept evolves. And the moment your identity aligns with your new reality, imposter syndrome dissolves, because you finally see yourself as the person your results already say you are. Another important truth: imposter syndrome hits the hardest in people who care deeply about doing good work. The fact that you worry about your performance is not a weakness. It's evidence of integrity, responsibility, and ambition. People who don't care about excellence never feel like imposters. They don't have enough self-awareness to question themselves. But high achievers do. You doubt not because you lack ability, but because you have high standards. And those standards are what will elevate you, not limit you. Your job is not to eliminate imposter syndrome. Your job is to reinterpret it so it becomes your ally. You learn to say, if I'm uncomfortable, it means I'm growing. You learn to say, if this feels unfamiliar, it's because I'm stepping into the next level of my life. You learn to say, this discomfort means expansion, not fraud. When you adopt this mindset, imposter syndrome becomes a signal that you are on the right path, not the wrong one. Imagine carrying this new interpretation into your workplace. Imagine walking into meetings thinking, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Imagine handling new responsibilities with the belief, I grow into every role I step into. Imagine accepting challenges with the mindset, this may feel new, but I adapt fast. And that alone can transform your posture, your energy, your communication, and your presence. People can feel when someone believes in themselves, and they can feel when someone doubts themselves. Your energy communicates before your words do. Now imagine your life 1 year from now if you consistently reframe imposter syndrome as expansion. You would take more opportunities. You would accept bigger roles. You would speak with more authority. You would learn faster. You would grow faster. And most importantly, you would step into the identity of someone who belongs in every room they enter. Because the truth is, you do belong. You always have. Your only challenge was believing it. Imposter syndrome cannot stop you. It can only confuse you. And confusion dissolves the moment you see the truth clearly. You are not an imposter. You are a rising version of yourself. And the discomfort you feel is simply the sound of your identity expanding to match the life you're building. Topic 8. Mastering the energy of self-worth. How to stop undervaluing yourself in any workplace. If there is one silent force that determines your career growth more than skill, talent, or experience, it is self-worth. Your sense of worth determines the risks you take, the projects you accept, the salary you ask for, the boundaries you set, the opportunities you believe you qualify for, and the amount of space you allow yourself to occupy in your professional world. Self-worth is the invisible currency that multiplies or limits your success. And the painful truth is that most people are operating with emotional bank accounts that are nearly empty, not because they lack ability, but because they've unconsciously trained themselves to undervalue their own worth. Undervaluing yourself doesn't always look dramatic. It often looks subtle. It looks like being afraid to ask for a raise you know you deserve. It looks like apologizing before sharing an idea. It looks like shrinking in rooms where you should be expanding. It looks like letting others interrupt you without defending your space. It looks like saying yes to extra work you don't have capacity for because you don't want to disappoint anyone. It looks like staying small because you don't want to appear arrogant. But here's the truth. Humility is not the same as self-neglect. Being humble doesn't mean you underestimate yourself. True humility is recognizing your strengths with honesty, your weaknesses with compassion, and your potential with confidence. Self-worth is the foundation that allows humility to coexist with power. If you've been undervaluing yourself at work, understand this: it is not your fault. Most people were conditioned to believe that confidence is dangerous, ambition is selfish, and taking up space is rude. Many grew up hearing phrases like, "Don't brag," "Stay humble," "Don't make mistakes," or "Who do you think you are?" These messages sink deep into the subconscious, shaping your beliefs about what you deserve. So, when you step into adulthood, you carry this outdated programming into the workplace, and suddenly you're surrounded by people who were never taught to shrink. People who speak boldly, people who negotiate, people who raise their hands, people who have no problem taking credit. And internally, it feels like you're not built the same, but you are. The difference is conditioning, not capacity. Let's look at a real example of someone who rejected this conditioning. Mary Barra, CEO of General Motors. When Barra first began her career as an engineering intern, she was one of the few women in a male-dominated industry. It would have been easy to undervalue herself, easy to stay in the background, easy to believe others were more qualified. But instead, she showed up as someone who believed she deserved to be at the table. She volunteered for challenging assignments. She spoke with clarity. She carried herself with a sense of grounded self-worth. And as a result, she rose, not because the industry was simple, but because she refused to shrink. Her presence taught something profound. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. You just have to be the person who believes they deserve to be there. Self-worth is an energetic frequency. People can feel it on you. Leaders can sense it. Opportunities are drawn to it. When you believe in your worth, you naturally project a calm authority that doesn't need to be forced. You don't have to prove yourself obsessively. You don't have to explain your value endlessly. You don't have to chase validation or overwork yourself to exhaustion. People trust you, not because you demand it, but because your energy communicates competence, capability, and self-respect. But when your self-worth is low, your energy contracts. You become more hesitant. You second-guess your decisions. You take criticism personally. You allow others to define your limits. And the workplace interprets this energy as a lack of leadership potential, even if you are incredibly talented. This is why two people with equal skills can have wildly different career outcomes. The person who values themselves receives opportunities. The person who undervalues themselves blends into the background. The world responds not to your ability, but to your belief in your ability. One of the biggest symptoms of low self-worth is overworking. When you don't feel worthy, you try to earn worthiness through labor. You think, if I work harder, they'll respect me. If I take on everything, they'll see my value. If I'm always available, they won't replace me. But overworking doesn't create respect. It creates burnout. And burnout makes self-doubt even stronger. High performers don't work themselves into exhaustion. They set boundaries. They prioritize rest. They know their energy is their most valuable asset. And because they value themselves, others value them too. Self-worth also determines how you react to success. People with low self-worth feel guilty when they shine. They minimize their achievements. They worry about outgrowing others. They believe success is temporary or undeserved. But people with high self-worth celebrate their wins because they know growth is natural, deserved, and part of their path. They expand into success instead of shrinking from it. And this expansion amplifies every area of their professional life. Now imagine applying high self-worth to your daily work journey. Imagine walking into the office or logging into your job remotely with the quiet, grounded certainty that you bring value wherever you go. Imagine no longer apologizing for your existence. Imagine no longer over-explaining. Imagine no longer questioning your right to succeed. Imagine knowing, deeply, emotionally, energetically, that you deserve every opportunity that comes your way. That shift alone could change your entire career trajectory. Because when you value yourself, you stop negotiating against yourself. You stop settling. You stop giving discounts on your worth. There's a reason why companies like Apple, Amazon, and Google seek employees who demonstrate confidence and self-assurance. These qualities predict leadership potential. They signal someone who can handle complexity, adapt quickly, and take ownership of their role. Self-worth is not just an emotional trait. It is a strategic advantage. And here's the greatest truth of all. Your worth is not something you earn. It is something you reclaim. You were born worthy. You were born capable. You were born with potential. The world may have taught you to doubt it, but the world does not decide your value. You do. The moment you stop undervaluing yourself, the workplace begins to mirror that shift. You get more respect, more recognition, more opportunities, more abundance, because you're finally operating from a place of knowing, not hoping. Imagine 1 year from now, looking back at the version of you who used to shrink. You will barely recognize them, because once you master the energy of self-worth, you rise naturally, not through force, but through alignment. Topic 9. The prosperity mindset for career expansion. How wealth thinking eliminates self-doubt. If you want to rise in your career, attract opportunities, earn more, and break free from self-doubt once and for all, you must adopt a prosperity mindset. The same mindset used by millionaire entrepreneurs, exceptional leaders, and high-performing professionals worldwide. This mindset is not about money alone. It is about how you see yourself, how you see your value, how you see possibility, and how you interpret challenges. Because the truth is, success is psychological before it is material. Wealthy people are not simply lucky or more talented. They think differently. They see differently. They move differently in the world. And at the core of that difference is this: they expect growth. They expect expansion. They expect opportunities. And because they expect it, they act accordingly. Self-doubt cannot survive inside a prosperity mindset. It collapses because the internal belief system becomes incompatible with negative self-perception. When you think like someone who is expanding, you stop shrinking. When you think like someone who is capable of wealth, not just financial wealth, but emotional, professional, and intellectual wealth, you stop questioning whether you deserve success. You begin to see yourself as a contributor, a creator, a leader, and the workplace responds to that identity shift instantly. To understand the prosperity mindset, look at individuals who built empires from nothing. People like Sarah Blakely, Howard Schultz, and Damon John. They all had something in common long before wealth arrived. They believed they had something valuable to offer the world. Their worth didn't increase after they succeeded. Their worthiness produced the success. Howard Schultz, for example, grew up in public housing, far from the world of billionaires. But he carried a belief that he could build something meaningful. He looked at the world through a lens of possibility. He didn't say, "People like me don't succeed." He said, "Why not me?" That is prosperity thinking. And that is the mindset that eliminates self-doubt at the root. Self-doubt thrives in scarcity thinking, the belief that opportunities are limited, success is rare, and someone else's rise means your decline. Scarcity makes you protective, hesitant, fearful, and competitive in unhealthy ways. Prosperity thinking, on the other hand, is expansive. It says, there is space for me. There is opportunity for me. My success contributes to a bigger ecosystem of success. When you shift from scarcity to prosperity, your energy changes. You become more creative, more resilient, more confident, and more willing to take strategic risks. And these qualities make you stand out in any organization. Look at Amazon's growth under Jeff Bezos. He operated under what he called a day-one mentality, the idea that every day is an opportunity for expansion, innovation, and reinvention. Prosperity thinking doesn't cling to the past. It doesn't operate from fear. It doesn't worry about running out. It focuses on creating more. This mindset allowed Amazon to innovate rapidly, dominate industries, and remain adaptable even during global disruptions. When you adopt a day-one mentality in your own career, self-doubt evaporates because your focus shifts from protecting yourself to expanding yourself. Prosperity thinking also changes how you interpret failure. Scarcity thinking fears failure because it believes every setback is final, limited, and deeply personal. Prosperity thinking sees failure as tuition, the cost of entry to a bigger life. Sarah Blakely famously celebrated failure in her home growing up. Her father would ask, "What did you fail at this week?" This rewired her brain to see mistakes as part of success. Imagine carrying that mindset into your workplace. Imagine viewing every challenge as training. Imagine seeing setbacks as evidence that you're playing at a higher level. Suddenly, self-doubt has no room to exist because you're no longer afraid of the very experiences that help you grow. Another powerful aspect of the prosperity mindset is self-investment. Wealthy thinkers understand that the most valuable asset they possess is themselves. They invest in their skills, their mindset, their emotional intelligence, their leadership abilities, and their personal growth. They don't wait for someone else to develop them. They don't wait for approval before improving. They take ownership of their evolution. This creates a sense of inner stability, a belief that no matter what happens externally, they can always upgrade internally. Self-doubt weakens when self-investment strengthens. Now, imagine applying this mindset to your daily professional life. Imagine walking into your job with the belief that your potential is expanding, that your work contributes to something meaningful, that every task is developing your future capability. Imagine approaching meetings with the thought, "I belong here," and taking on new responsibilities with the belief, "I grow stronger every time I stretch." Imagine no longer worrying what others think of you because your focus is on becoming the best version of yourself, not fitting into someone else's expectations. That is the power of prosperity thinking. It reorients your entire emotional landscape toward growth. Companies like Google and Tesla recruit individuals who demonstrate this mindset because they know prosperity-oriented thinkers are adaptable, innovative, and self-driven. They don't collapse under pressure. They transform under it. They don't wait for permission. They create opportunities. They don't cling to comfort. They seek expansion. When you adopt this mindset, you position yourself for leadership, visibility, and long-term success. The prosperity mindset also enhances your presence. When you believe in your value, people feel it. When you expect good things, people trust you more. When you walk into a room exuding possibility rather than insecurity, you change the entire dynamic. This magnetic energy is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the expression of someone who knows their worth and is open to receiving more. And the professional world responds to that openness because energy is communication. Your presence tells people how to treat you. Imagine your life 1 year from now after consistently practicing prosperity thinking. You would take more opportunities, you would negotiate more confidently, you would speak with more authority. You would lead with more clarity. You would grow faster than you thought possible. Not because the world magically changed, but because your internal operating system did. Self-doubt cannot coexist with a prosperity mindset. One expands, the other constricts, and the moment you choose expansion, your entire career begins to shift in your favor. This is how wealth is built, from the inside out. And this is how your professional world transforms, through the mindset that says, "I deserve to grow. I deserve to rise. I deserve to succeed." Topic 10. The Confident Self. You are meant to become, integrating everything into one life-changing transformation. There comes a moment in every journey of growth when the pieces begin to come together, when the lessons you've learned start forming a new identity, when your old habits no longer fit, and when the version of you that once lived in self-doubt finally begins to dissolve. If you followed each topic so far, something powerful has already begun inside you. You're thinking differently. You're seeing yourself differently. You're interpreting your emotions differently. And slowly, you're stepping into a new internal posture, one that feels clearer, stronger, more grounded, more capable, and more aligned with who you were always meant to be. This final chapter is about integrating everything: the beliefs, the stories, the emotional shifts, the identity upgrades, the prosperity mindset, everything that transforms you from a person held back by doubt to a person propelled by self-worth. The truth is, Overcoming self-doubt at work is not a one-time epiphany. It is a transformation that unfolds through layers, the way a sculptor chisels away stone to reveal the masterpiece underneath. You've now understood the cost of self-doubt, learned to rewrite your inner narrative, broken the cycle of overthinking, built a new identity, regulated your emotions, reclaimed your voice, reframed imposter syndrome, anchored into self-worth, and adopted a prosperity mindset. These aren't small shifts. These are foundational, life-changing recalibrations that alter how you show up in the world. And the more you embody them, the more your workplace and your entire life begins to reflect your new inner state. So let's imagine something together. Imagine your future self 1 year from now. The version of you who has practiced everything in this guide consistently. The version of you who no longer negotiates with fear, who no longer apologizes for their presence, who no longer shrinks when an opportunity appears, who no longer waits for permission to grow. Picture that version clearly. See how they walk into a meeting, calm, grounded, with a quiet confidence that can't be manufactured. See how they speak, not rushed, not hesitant, but with clarity that comes from trusting their mind. See how they make decisions, faster, cleaner, without spiraling into overthinking. See how they receive praise, without deflecting, without minimizing, without shrinking. See how they take ownership of challenges, not with anxiety, but with the belief, I will handle this. Now picture the career that future version of you experiences. Opportunities coming because people notice your presence. Promotions happening because your capability is unmistakable. Raises offered because your value is undeniable. Leaders seeking your opinion because your voice carries weight. Your team trusting you. Your colleagues respecting you. Your work flowing more naturally because you no longer operate from fear. When your identity changes, your career trajectory changes automatically. You don't have to chase success, you magnetize it. You don't have to force confidence, you embody it. But here's the secret that most people never realize. This future version of you isn't an upgraded version you must earn. They are the real you, the you that existed before fear, doubt, insecurity, and conditioning took over. Self-doubt is not your truth. It is a habit. It is a learned pattern. It is a cloud that covers the sun but never erases it. The confident self you're stepping into is your original self. Powerful, resourceful, intuitive, resilient, capable. When you remove the layers of self-doubt, that version emerges naturally. Think of your life like the journey of companies that reinvented themselves. Apple after Steve Jobs returned, Microsoft under Satya Nadella, Disney during its transition into a global entertainment empire. Reinvention didn't happen because they discarded their core identity. Reinvention happened because they realigned with it. They removed what was outdated and amplified what was essential. That's exactly what you're doing right now. You're not becoming someone else. You're becoming more of yourself. As you integrate everything you've learned, there are 3 profound truths you must hold close, because they will guide your behavior, your decisions, and your identity in the days ahead. The first truth is this: your potential expands as your self-belief expands. Life does not give you opportunities because you are lucky. It gives you opportunities because you are ready internally. When you believe you are capable, your actions reflect that belief. When your actions reflect confidence, the world responds accordingly. Self-belief is not a luxury. It is a strategy. The second truth is, your emotional world is not your enemy. It is your compass. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to move with fear without letting it lead. Every time you feel discomfort, it is not a sign that you don't belong. It is a sign that growth is happening. You are expanding your identity. Your nervous system is stretching. Your mind is learning. Your soul is rising. Embrace the discomfort. It is shaping you. And the third truth is, you are worthy now, not later, not after proving yourself, not after perfection, now. Worthiness is the foundation of confidence. It is the belief that you deserve to speak, to be heard, to lead, to grow, to succeed, to be recognized, and to rise. When you anchor into worthiness, your entire energy shifts. You no longer chase validation. You no longer overwork to prove yourself. You no longer shrink because you fear judgment. You show up fully, and the world adjusts to your presence. This transformation requires consistency, not intensity. You don't have to do everything perfectly. You just have to practice relentlessly. Speak when you want to hide. Breathe when you feel overwhelmed. Reframe your thoughts when doubt whispers. Choose action when overthinking pulls you back. Honor your worth when old conditioning tries to shrink you. With each small act of courage, you reinforce the identity of someone who trusts themselves. And trust builds confidence. Now, imagine your life 5 years from now. If you integrate everything you've learned here, your career will be unrecognizable. Your relationships will be healthier. Your opportunities will be bigger. Your presence will be stronger. Your influence will be deeper. You will look back at this moment, right now, as the moment everything shifted. The moment you stopped waiting to feel confident and started acting like someone who already is. This is how leaders are born. This is how successful careers are built. This is how lives transform. Never forget this. Confidence is not something you receive from the world. Confidence is something you choose. And through choosing it repeatedly, it becomes who you are. The confident, powerful, grounded, successful version of you is not a fantasy. They're already inside you. They've been waiting for you to step forward and claim them. Today is that step. Today is the beginning of your rise. Today is the moment you decide to stop living beneath your potential and start becoming the unstoppable, self-assured, prosperous version of yourself that you were always meant to be. This is your new identity. This is your new chapter, and the world is ready for the confident leader you are becoming. If this video awakened something in you, if you felt your mindset shifting, your confidence rising, and your identity expanding, then don't stop here. This is your moment. So take a second now to subscribe, because the next videos will take you even deeper into the psychology of success, wealth, abundance, self-worth, and personal transformation. Hit like if this message resonated with you, and comment below what your biggest breakthrough was. I truly want to hear your story. And if you know someone who struggles with self-doubt at work, share this video with them. You never know whose life you might change with one act of generosity. You're growing, you're rising, and this journey has only just begun.